Hey everybody! Recently, Vsalt had an expert panel discussion on faster payment strategy, and we brought in experts from all around the industry to share their thoughts on what it takes to create a faster payment strategy. First thing we asked them was, where do you start? Then we asked them to share some of the lessons they have learned from implementing faster payments. Because some people actually submitted some questions in advance. And the question that comes in advance is, we've got all this experience, people who are already working in the area of faster payments, have seen it happen, have been there. What is it that you've actually learned? So from your experience of already implementing what's going on in the world of faster payments, what were the lessons that you've learned? So Attila, as somebody who's already implemented faster payments, a couple of different types at different institutions, when you look back, what is it you went, oh wow, this really sticks out. This is something that I learned that I need to get something from this experience, and maybe share it with others, that be prepared for this. Be looking at this as you're moving forward, because maybe it was the unexpected, or maybe this is something that was actually highly successful as you were implementing faster payments.
I'll jump into what my colleague previously said about risks specifically. The risk of not knowing enough about what you're trying to do. You want to be in a position that everyone within your organization, way before you start the project, it's comfortable enough, and their payments 101 when it comes to RTP or faster payments meets the needs that you need to have from their perspective, right? So they need to truly understand what kind of risks you're going to deal with, security risk, adoption risk, a boatload of different risks that you have to map this out, and you have to talk it through and make sure that everybody's on the same page. Maybe the most important lesson that I learned from launching RTP was project management discipline. There is not enough being said about how things can go wrong or can go south extremely fast if you don't have the appropriate discipline. You have to have, again, and a lot of instances why your project might go south is because the level of knowledge, it's not at the place that you want to be, so you don't have these roadmaps during your project. And then maybe the third one, you want to partner with an external fintech environment, organization, if you will, that has experience doing what you're trying to do. Can teach you a lot in that process as you do discovery sessions and research what exactly you need to get to. And while the project is ongoing, it can also be that partner that you want to rely on. And with that in mind, I want to say that you want to hold that partner that you're working with as close to yourself as possible, because everything depends on them, right? So the success of your product launch, the success of completing the project, it's on them as well as on you.
I wish you guys could see my view sometimes, because we've got a chat box just for the panelists to make sure that we all, don't step on each other's toes. And we got some great conversation going back and forth. And I love some of the things that you had to say there. The map it out with everyone involved. What's it going to really look like? I've seen in cases of implementing services and products that was done as an afterthought, and it caused issues. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to bounce it back to Lisa, because she's sitting there smiling. I can tell she's eager to answer this one. Lisa, you've been in that process of implementing services and products for years, and you've recently been doing it with faster payments. Looking at, hey, this is what we did. What are the lessons you've learned from doing it that everybody should be aware of, to be, hey, be on your toes for this. Make sure you account for this.
It's important to have all business groups in your organization be involved with the process. And be humble enough to know that you don't know everything about everything, right? So as long as you start with that, and the biggest lesson I've learned is that risk and risk assessment can kill innovation if you don't have it involved from the beginning. You know, a lot of people, it's an adversarial kind of relationship in developing your strategy and even rolling out new products, because it seems like risk is the fun sponge of any person who is passionate about innovation or a new product. Stop laughing, Pam, but it's true. You know, it's true, fun sponge. Anyway, and it doesn't have to be that way. If they're involved in the beginning and made part of the innovation process, then holistically you have a better product and a safer product, right? To maybe, you're not going to mitigate every risk. It's not possible. But you can maybe mitigate the big things, right?
So thanks, Lisa. I take the F out of fun.
Yeah. Hey, wait, if you're going to take the F out of fun, you're going to go ahead and, Pam, we're calling it, it's you. You jumped in there. What do you say when you look at what's already being done, what you've done from your experience too? What should people be on the lookout for to make sure that, well, we don't take the innovation out of it? And I would even say we don't want to take the fun out of it. We want this implementation of a new product and service to be fun for the people that are involved. And, well, profitable is probably another word that we might throw in there too. So Pam, what would you tell everyone?
Well, it takes a team, you know, and I believe involving people like myself that probably bring a different perspective to the table early on, as you said, Lisa, not after implementation, but really involved and collaborate. And, you know, we think a little bit differently. And another gap I see, sorry to keep taking the F out of fun, but vendor management becomes more and more important. Having a point person to manage that vendor and doing, you know, relying on technology, as Attila has emphasized more than once, makes our vendor management program and risk assessments even more important.
Management and risk assessments. How many people are out there going, yeah, I'm looking for it, yeah. Hey, it's important stuff. And you know, those FFIEC, OCC guidances and all that we get, we've got to follow them. But you also mentioned the technology side of things. So from the technology side of things, Abhishek, you've been out there, you've worked in other countries to be able to get faster payments implemented. You're doing it here in the US as well. What have you seen that was, hey, here's a huge lesson learned that our attendees should be aware of when it comes to that faster payment strategy?
When we talk about lessons learned, it's never going to be a fun conversation. So I don't blame you, Pam, for taking the fun out of this conversation. I think it's Kevin's fault. There's a couple key components. First being, we have to make sure that you are creating an ecosystem across your various disparate technology systems. It's not a hey, here's a piece, now please Lord, let them work. It needs to be a conscious, focused discussion around, all right, let's make sure that my payments platform is ready and able to integrate all of the payments rails that we're looking at. Let's make sure that my risk assessment team gets all the reports and all of the documentation they need to be comfortable with the level of risk that's being generated. Talk about India as an example. The rails themselves are excellent, extraordinary, but then there were some technology limitations, some technology bottlenecks that slowed adoption. And then the government got involved and deployed their own application for institutions to be able to adopt. And that killed innovation altogether. As long as we maintain an open, creative environment where we can use the rails to deploy any use case, anything that could use that payment rail to make an overall better account holder experience, I don't think we should shy away from that. And I think we can create meaningful technology environments to help institutions grow in the age of fintechs trying to take away from fintechs trying to compete with banks and act as challenger banks rather than support them.
Working together, that's important, especially from the tech side. I appreciate you mentioning too about the bottlenecks and what happened in India. And I love your comment on government. I want to go ahead and go to Leo though, because one of the things too, we've already mentioned having partners. And Leo does represent an organization that if you're looking for somebody, they can help you, they can partner with you. They've done this in other countries. So Leo, you've seen faster payments implemented in the US, but you've also seen it implemented at institutions around the globe. What are the lessons that you've learned from observing, for years now, faster payments being implemented around the globe, but of course here in the US with things like RTP as well?
Yeah. So one of the key things I think is to take a very strategic view, which is to say, look, I began my initial comment was really about, what do I want to be when I grow up, right? But I think that what we're saying in the payments industry and in the financial services industry as a whole is, and this is going to sound like a management consultant talking to you for a moment, so bear with me. I'll get us there, right? Okay, is the fragmentation of the value chain, the fragmentation of the vertical integration of the industry. That nobody would tolerate it, right? If you look at other parts of the financial services industry, if you were to go to a financial advisor, right, and they would only offer you mutual funds from a single management company, or they would only offer you financial products from a single company, you wouldn't stand for it, right? If you were to only go to an insurance broker and they were only offering you insurance from a single insurance company, you wouldn't stand for it. But yet when it comes to payments, that's exactly what we expect, right? In fact, we go to our bank and we go to our financial institution and we expect, okay, that they're only going to offer us their own payment products. Well, that is already beginning to fragment insofar as we're seeing some financial institutions focusing on the production, okay, of payment services, and others that are focusing on the distribution of payment services. In fact, when you look at the way in which this is a development that's been going on for decades, we're just renaming it now and describing it a little bit differently. When you look at the way in which many smaller financial institutions have to rely upon core processors for those basic products, right? Okay, they in effect are simply becoming distribution channels for that back office that they've outsourced to someone else anyway. But we're seeing that increase with the likes of neobanks, with the likes of online-only banks that then completely outsource all the back office, and all they do is they've got a nice-looking front end that's facing the consumer. So, to get back to your question, what is it what are some of the key considerations? Well, I think that a financial institution has to consider, what is my future digital strategy? What is my overall business strategy? What is it that actually I want to be? Do I want to be a repository for my customers' money, right? Which they then can access via other channels, or do I want to be the customer-facing side of it, or do I want to do both, right? Very few institutions will succeed at doing both. Many more will tend to focus in one way or the other. And I would argue that for the smaller banks, they're probably much better off focusing on the customer relationships, right? And allowing the back office stuff to be done by those that can do it in a more scalable and in a more cost-efficient manner. Larger institutions might be able to manage both. So when I look at what's happened, right? One other thing that we see in doing that is the degree of, and what's determined the degree of adoption in many countries has been about the level of coordination. Now, I also think that it's, what's the right word? I think it's far-fetched to think that the 10,000 plus financial institutions in the US are going to come together with a national faster payments strategy, right? Nor do I think the Justice Department would allow it if the banks somehow, or if the financial institutions decided that they wanted to do it. Okay. However, where we've seen that in other countries, we've seen adoption really take off. I think the more likely scenario, right, is what we're seeing in the U.S. is this fragmentation. We have multiple rails, we have multiple strategies, we have multiple ways of going about doing this, and chaos can sometimes be a really beautiful thing too. So. The question is, what have we learned from other countries? We've learned lots of things. Some of them are applicable, some of them are not.
I like the chaos comment there. That's great too. And I'm going to quickly create some chaos in this. I got a quick question.
So I want to interrupt with one final comment. So I said the beautiful chaos. I'd say in chaos though lies opportunity. if things are orderly, right, then everybody has the same opportunities, right? That's not good, right? Chaos is wonderful in that respect.
Okay, I'm blown away by the different views. Did you catch all of that? The risk of not knowing enough. That's one heck of a lesson to learn the hard way, right? What kind of risk adoption, security, having all of that in place, mapping them all out with everyone involved to make sure everyone is on the same page and following the same map. Partner with an external fintech provider that has experience with what you are trying to do so that they can teach you, especially in the discovery sessions, while the project is ongoing, and they will be there so you can rely on your fintech partner. Also, hold your partner close to you because your success is on them and also on you. Additionally, we learned it's important to have all business groups in your organization involved in the process. And don't forget about vendor management, because vendor management becomes increasingly important, and having a point person to manage that vendor management relationship and to rely on technology makes that program and the risk assessment for it even more important. And what about those key components? Yeah, those key components of making sure that you are creating an ecosystem across various disparate technology systems. Fintechs can create meaningful technology environments that help and support financial institutions. What else? Take a strategic view. Financial institutions must consider, what is my future digital strategy or business strategy? What do you actually want to be? There was a lot packed in there. Those were some great comments, and there were more views shared from other experts. And if you'd like to hear and see what the other experts had to say, or maybe see the entire webinar on the faster payment strategy, then head over to paymentsprofessor.com. I'll put a link to the webinar in the description to help. For now, class dismissed.